One of the reasons that I keep going is it's actually related to how much bikes and trails have changed in the last, 30 years since you've been riding. It's like there are a ton of options for rides that aren't necessarily going to induce death or injury to you if you go out there. We select different rides now than we did when we were younger.
Lube your chain and pump up those tires. It's time for Aging on Dirt, where we defy expectations one pedal stroke at a time. We age, but we don't have to get old, and we all want to experience the joy of mountain biking as long as possible. Are you starting to ride at an unreasonable age, getting back into it after a long layoff, or just wanting to extend how long you'll be riding? Then you're in the right place. And now, your host, Joel Zieve.
Welcome, everyone, to the first of many episodes featuring local couples who ride together called Chained Together, Finding Love and Flow on the Trail. This is going to be a really fun series. Today we have Ted Lystig and Sandy Schreyer. They've been riding together since the 90s and have been on some pretty amazing adventures together. I'm excited to dive in and hear more about these, and I'm sure you will be too. Let's welcome Ted and Sandy. Thanks for joining me, you guys, today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting us, Joel.
Yeah. So I'd like to give everybody an idea of a little bit about your background. How long have you two been riding on dirt?
Pushing 30 years now. Yeah, so we started in the late 90s, before we got married, when we were dating, in Seattle, Washington. So we got the mountain bikes there. Sandy had been riding for how many years before we met?
Probably 5 or 6 years. So I started when I was in grad school, and it was just a way not to kill my advisor and hang out with some friends.
Yeah, and I was more of a roadie background, and she brought me to the dark dirt side.
It is.
Oh, good for you, Sandy. That's great.
I have no regrets.
How old are you two?
So I'm 52.
And I'm 58.
Where do you live?
So we live in Huntsville, ridge up outside off Old Snow Basin Road, so we can look down on Art Nord Trailhead and decide where to go riding from there. It's places to ride just because we want to get in the car to do it.
And we spied for all of our friends, so if they want to know if the conditions are good, they just call us.
Okay, and how packed the parking lot is. So where's your favorite place to ride, say, within a half hour, 45 minutes of your house?
So, a lot of times it's nice. We do most of our riding out the door because the trailhead's a mile and a quarter away. Right?
Okay.
So, just bop down from Art Nord. If we have a little more time, I think I'd prefer doing up at North Fork.
North Fork or Powder Mountain.
Yeah.
It's all good, basically. Like, if it's dry, and it just depends. Do we have an hour or do we have 3 hours?
How much time do you have as it drives it? Part of it is we've only lived in Utah for a year and a half now. We moved here at the end of July 2021.
22.
And we lived in Minnesota previously. So This is like going from starvation to full buffet. So it's like everything is fantastic compared to what we're used to.
Oh, for sure. And what's your favorite type of mountain bike riding?
Yeah, definitely. We don't mind climbs as long as they're not like super techy. They can be long. That's okay. And as we get older, we definitely like more of the flow versus there's a cliff on both sides and you got to go over baby head rocks and you absolutely cannot miss that turn.
I actually prefer my technical stuff on the uphill more than the downhill.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's him. No.
It's more like a puzzle to solve. I'm not full trials Hans Ray sort of thing, but I do like to be like, okay, can I find a good line? Can I do that effectively? And then the downhill is just the payout for that. Right. Some people suffer through the climb to get to the downhill. I do the uphill, and then it's nice I get the downhill afterwards.
Okay.
I love the downhill, and I'm willing to tolerate the uphill.
So we have to compromise.
We compromise, yeah.
So what would you say your most proud accomplishment has been on a mountain bike, say, within the last year?
It's an odd thing, but actually, we did the nut last year, the nut ride. And both of us were still sick when we did it. like for like the day before, we're like still staying up all night and coughing and hacking and, kicking up phlegm. And we signed up for the 6 hour. We're like,
Oh, wow.
well, we're just going to go out there and keep riding. And so I think we rode for
a little over 4 hours. We convinced ourselves, and we said, look, if we can do 4 hours or 4 laps, then that's a good accomplishment for us, because honestly, like our first 6 months here, you just don't appreciate the effect of the altitude and the different kind of riding it is out here. We're used to pulling like 30-mile races. We've done 50-mile races, but a 50-mile race in the Midwest
is not the same as 50 miles at 8,000 feet.
It is
I'm sure.
such a different beast. And so, we've had to change our thinking, and we've had to like notch down that little piece of arrogance that sometimes comes in when you think, oh, I've been a mountain biker for over 30 years. I've got this. And actually, no.
It's like, no, if you go into your red zone, you're not really going to recover that fast. And I probably spent, I don't know, an hour and a half of that race seeing spots with my ellipse note.
Wow.
Because we've come to the mountains to play on our mountain bikes, but it's very different when you're like dumb enough to try a race. And then you're just like, oh, I can go a little faster. This will be good.
Well,
no.
And even if, because I enter these races with the mentality of, well, I'm just, I'm here to socialize and to have, and to have fun and be out for a ride. But you get wrapped up in the environment and start pushing it a lot harder than you think you're going to. So, so last year you guys completed, coming off being sick, 4 laps in just over 4 hours.
Just over 4 hours. Yeah. Participation is awesome. We're not really, we know we're not competitive anymore, but we love that, just that little excitement. And it's also a little motivating nugget when you're out riding and saying, okay, well, we signed up for this thing, so we should probably try to do an occasional ride that's 2.5, 3 hours long.
So why mountain bike at your age, knowing that if you fall, the potential of damage is higher and the recovery time is longer? Why do you continue to do it? And I guess part B of that is going to be, what do you do to help mitigate that? So why and how do you deal with it?
All right, I'll take the first part. To me, it's because I've mountain biked for so long, it always brings out my inner 12-year-old. And you just get on the bike, and it's different from road biking because you just get on it and you're just sort of focused on whatever is in the trail in front of you. And it's quite incredible because sometimes you have these workouts, you don't even realize it's a workout. You're just on there and you're just kind of zenning with the trail, and you're going up and you're going down. And then you're just like, why do I feel tired? And you're like, oh, I've been out for like an hour and a half. And that is still the same today as it was 30 years ago. There's it is like when you get on a trail and you get to go around and you make a little rock pile that you rarely make, and you're just like, yes. And it is just a great way to be old without being old. I'm slower for sure. And maybe I don't do the bigger things that I used to do, but I seriously still feel like a teenager when I'm out there. And I absolutely love that. And they say, what's the best way to age gracefully is to find an activity that you enjoy doing. And honestly, I don't really feel like I'm training when I'm on a mountain bike. Sometimes when I'm on a road bike, it is truly training, but when you're outside and you get on the mountain bike, you're playing. And gosh, how many sports or how many activities can you actually have that mentality? And about getting injured and recovering more, we've just gotten a little wiser about not doing maybe all of zippity doo dah, just, be a little bit more chill so that we don't tumble off the top of the mountain. And then we also have recognized that sometimes we have to take an extra day to recover because too many days in a row, the legs just get soggy now, and you can't push through it now like you used to. But who cares? Because it'll still be waiting for you the day after tomorrow, and you could just let your legs recover and then off you go again.
Right.
So I'd say for, one of the reasons that I keep going is it's actually related to how much bikes and trails have changed in the last, 30 years since you've been riding. It's like there are a ton of options for rides that aren't necessarily going to induce death or injury to you if you go out there, right?
Hey.
So you can just choose what level of commitment you want to go through when you're out there. So, we select different rides now than we did when we were younger.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily, I will look at a line. It's like, do I want to do that drop? Well, what would be the benefit of the drop that I cleared it? What would be the negative that I might get injured? Well, then I'm probably not going to do it because at this point, the benefit just isn't that appealing. And the downside is much bigger. I've had, various obese injuries, surgeries over the years, and being off the bike for an extended period of time isn't fun. So now I just, pick routes where that's less going to be an issue. But we still also do the biking as opposed to things like running, again, for injury type issues. And same thing with road biking. Both of us actually have been hit on our road bikes in the past by cars. Yeah. Though I take it back. I've been hit on the road, but I was on my mountain bike at the time.
Yeah. So what does that count as, right?
Same thing, right?
But if we stay on dirt, it's a lot better odds for in general.
So, oh yeah. Well, then if you crash, it's your fault.
Right.
Versus, somebody just driving right into you. So I'm curious. I didn't ask you this up front, but you guys have regular bikes, e-bikes, or both?
So we're analog. So
okay.
we have mountain bikes, regular mountain bikes. We have road bikes. We have gravel bikes. I also have that bike.
Okay.
So yeah,
we have cheap cars and expensive bikes, but they're not really that expensive with today's value. But
right.
They feel like, they're an expensive treat for us. But yeah.
So I'm curious. You guys, before we started, you mentioned that you ride individually, you ride together, and you also ride in bigger groups. So kind of talk about when you decide to go on each type and what you prefer and how often you do each of those.
So my preference when we have time and schedules allow is the two of us to ride together. I mean, it's a lot of fun. We get to go out. It's easy to do from home usually, and we know each other's skills and preferences. And, Sandy is good enough to wait for me after she clears the techie sections. I modulate my speed on the uphill so that we don't drift too far apart. But, we know and we like to ride together.
You're really evenly matched skill-wise over the course of a ride.
We choose
to be. So, I mean, it was actually kind of aggravating for me for many years when we start riding because Sandy is a much better natural technical rider than I am. She also has a gymnastics background. Her balance is tremendous. And,
oh, wow.
I'm not. So I, have more issues with technical sections than she does. But what would be challenging is she'd be willing to sort of ride with me to an easier trail. And then as soon as I was good enough to clear that trail, she'd be like, okay, now we can drive a harder trail. And I'm like, I'm just making it as we are. And so
don't push me anymore.
At the edge of my ability to try to stay up with my wife.
That's pretty cool because I would imagine that for most people, it's the other way around. It's the guy that's generally more skilled and more powerful.
That's just been the deal.
But there is one thing about riding with at least two. I ride differently if I'm riding alone.
Yeah.
I'm not as aggressive or I'm not willing to try the same things if I'm alone because some of these trails, sometimes they're crowded. And if you're going later in the evening, sometimes they're not. And I don't want to be hanging out while the sun is setting, with a broken leg or busted collarbone or something. And it is almost better to ride just a little bit more aggressive because it helps you clear some things.
Yeah.
But I won't ride that way if it's just me. Whereas if I'm in with Ted, we've got like a group of friends that, we get together with, especially going over to Antelope Island or whatever. And then it's, then you just feel more comfortable trying a few things because someone will scoop up the bits if you bite it.
So that's solo and together. So what about the group rides? Why do you do those?
The group things become not really like if we're thinking that we need a bit of a workout, that's not really like the philosophy behind riding in a group. To me, riding in a group is watching other people have a lot of fun and maybe push themselves a little bit. And especially as a female rider, I actually like riding with guys because they pick different lines. And sometimes I don't see them until I'm riding behind them. And I'm like, oh, you could do it that way. And I always wind up learning something, but it's also just sharing something that's really fun together, right? It always takes a lot longer to complete a loop because like you do a little section and then of course everyone has to do the post-game show of that section. Oh, we made this, or we rolled out there, whatever. But it just becomes more of a day outing.
But it's also, if you're getting to, and it also kind of depends on what kind of group you're getting together with. Are you getting together a group to do pre-ride of a race course?
Yeah.
Are you getting together with a group because you haven't seen each other for a while, you want to hang out? Are you getting together with a group because other people know this trail that you want to scope out, right? And, barring the pre-ride of the race course, most of the time, the keeping group dynamics in a good place is more important than what you're doing aerobically for your training set, right? And so you just have to go in it from the standpoint of there will be people faster, there will be people slower. You might be the caboose one ride, you might be the engine one ride, but the ride doesn't benefit from people being extreme off the front or being off the back. And so if you want to have a good ride, you want people to come back, then it's like, okay, you got to ride in such a way that you're going to be around other people. And then you can use instead, like Sandy was saying, use it as an opportunity to see how people take different lines, or how they approach different obstacles or something like that. And then, so that becomes a different objective than I've got 2 hours between calls and trying to sneak out the door. I want to, get my ride in the shower before I'm on the call again.
Right.
That's a different kind of ride.
Yep. What would you say to someone who's been out of the sport for a while and thinking about getting back into it?
Sure. I would say that the trails are definitely more challenging now because the bike technology has improved so much. I mean, if you're old like me and you've been biking forever, you started without any suspension. And so the expectation of a trail matched that lack of suspension. And now sort of a typical all mountain bike has tremendous amount of suspension. It's also a little bit heavier and it does allow you to do more. And of course, it also comes with a higher price tag. So if you started on one of those mustache bikes, and some people remember what those are, or the ones that had a whopping 100-millimeter front travel on an aluminum frame, and you were just like the queen all around for having that bike. It is a different world out there. And like the BST has, everyone says, oh, it's a great, all around trail, but there are some scary sections. So you've got to be prepared to hop off the bike a little bit, especially when you're getting back into it. And even after you've been back into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the other things sort of tied to that is we've ridden enough that I think we're a little bit better about riding trails blind. We've done that a ton. But if you're coming back into it, into Sandy's point earlier, years ago, you would see sections of the trail and you'd be like, oh, no, that's not right of it. Right. Unless you're like a superstar, you just can't do it. And what's weird is that if it's something that appears on something like trail forks, there is actually a line through it. The bikes are capable enough to go through it if you believe and trust and let the bikes. And most of the time when I have issues, it's not because I can't clear it. It's because I didn't trust the bike to clear it.
Right.
But,
I see that all the time with coaching as people's skills start to slowly improve. They're looking at stuff and they're like, I can't, I don't know if the bike can do it. Like, trust me, the bike can do it. And I'll get on the bike and go and do it.
But if you're getting back into it, I think probably be a lot more open to the concept of things like sessioning, like figure out what is a challenge for you and how to get through it. Don't have an expectation that everything's going to snap right back and be the same person you were, or that the trails are exactly the same. It's a different set of skills. So just ride with other people, preferably not that are too much better than you, they're a little bit better than you.
Yeah.
And be open to saying, both the trails and the bikes are probably a lot different from when you last rode.
Right. Okay. Awesome. You don't know what you don't know, right?
No, that's it. And I would say don't have a teenager teach you because they just don't have that fear gene yet, right? And they're just like, oh, you just shoot it straight down and don't touch the brakes until you bottom out. So like,
this business is about riding with people that are just a little bit better with you, but not massively better than you.
Mhm.
So we had a good friend of ours, Carola, that was getting into mountain biking. She moved from Seattle out to eastern Washington State, started to do a lot more mountain biking, but she'd known many of the people. And so she'd hear there'd be a ride. She'd show up in a place where people are gathering and go with them. And one time the way she described it was, I knew I was in trouble when I got there with my bike and I started seeing the other people putting on body armor. She's like, she was not a body armor kind of person.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, well, it's a little bit like, ski areas and bike areas. Black means different things in different places.
Oh, sure.
Up near,
Whistler.
Was it Lord of the Squirrels?
Lord of the Squirrels at Whistler. Yep.
It's a cross country route near there. It's rated blue. And my God, as a blind ride, there's these big roll of rock slabs with a hard turn at the bottom. And if you don't know what's coming up ahead of time, yeah, I mean, we ran out of water on that thing.
Oh, wow.
It's this ridiculous amount of climbing.
I think I cried, I'll be honest. Who knows? It's part of the adventure, right?
Great. Just to kind of wrap up, and I appreciate the time that you guys have given everybody in our audience today.
All righty. Hey, we'll see you out at North Fork.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Hey, Joel.
Thanks so much.
All righty, Joel.
Well, that's another lap around the bike park for Aging on Dirt. I hope you've learned something and or found this entertaining. Most importantly, go out and apply what you've learned so you can experience more joy on your bike. Remember, Joel wants your input. What topics and or guests do you want to hear? Reach out to him where you're listening to the podcast, on Facebook, or find his email/phone on his coaching website, jzmtb.com. Until next time, have fun and be safe out there.